On this Wednesday night, Canada's attempt to hike up defense spending, Ottawa's response to NATO's pressure, why critics say it's still not enough. New doubts from top Democrats, the high-profile names chiming in.
Time is running short.
As the revolt against Joe Biden grows. Deadly attack with a crossbow. The man accused of targeting a BBC commentator's family. Powering forward, the unwavering pride and optimism among Canadian soccer fans. And forget snakes on a plane. What about these eels on a tarmac?
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. U.S. President Joe Biden welcomed world leaders to Washington today for NATO's 75th anniversary summit. This as prominent Democrats added their voices to the growing calls for him to drop out of the upcoming presidential race. We'll have more on that in a moment, but we begin tonight with a not-so-quiet whispers aimed at Canada's leader at the summit over our country's lack of defense spending. Today, the Trudeau government attempted to take a step in the right direction by announcing the purchase of new submarines. Government sources also say Canada will release a timeline to reach its defense spending goal. Mercedes Stephenson reports.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will unveil a timeline tomorrow for Canada to meet its NATO defence spending target. The move comes after intensifying international criticism of the Liberal government for failing to step up in an era of worsening threats where other allies have drastically increased their defence spending.
I'm absolutely committed. Canada has to do more, and Canada will do more, and we'll meet the 2% pledge. And I think we have to even go beyond that 2% pledge.
A senior government source warned that the announcement will be light on details, but it will set a timeline to reach 2%, something the United States had asked Canada for, according to senior Five Eyes sources. Today in Washington, the government confirmed something it had been hinting about since the spring. Canada will buy a new submarine fleet. Up to 12 new non-nuclear subs will be purchased that will be Arctic capable.
This is long overdue. This is a very serious capability, and it's something that Canada, surrounded on three sides by water, really needs to have in our inventory.
There is no timeline attached to the submarine procurement, and the government doesn't know how much they'll cost. It's a good signal, defense analysts say, but there needs to be more substance behind the announcement for it to be meaningful.
If they're not announcing new money, then this is really a very incremental step forward.
The plan to procure subs comes amid concerns that China and Russia are aggressively exploiting and operating in the Canadian Arctic. The devil is in the details on procurements like this. Even simple ones in Canada have a history of falling far behind schedule. But after coming under increasing political and diplomatic pressure, sources say the Liberals felt they needed to do something.
I'm very concerned about how long it takes us to do these types of things. Our track record is atrocious.
According to a senior government source, the submarine commitment alone won't get Canada to 2%. But missile defense could be on the table, too. It's something that Five Eyes sources say the Americans have suggested Canada might want to consider. Carolyn?
Mercedes Stephenson in Washington. Thank you. While the U.S. president tries to focus on that NATO summit, he remains defiant against those questioning his ability to lead. Joe Biden says he's staying in the presidential race. Let's bring in our Washington bureau chief, Jackson Proskow. Jackson, we're now talking about high-profile Democrats who are voicing their concerns publicly.
That's right, Carolyn. And those voices are only growing louder and more prominent. They're all saying Biden needs to make a decision about his future as quickly as possible. One of the most direct pleas for him to leave comes from actor George Clooney, a major Democratic Party supporter. Just 3 weeks after Clooney appeared on stage with the president at a fundraiser, he today writes in the New York Times about Biden's decline, saying that at that event, Biden was the same man we witnessed at the debate. Clooney goes on to say Joe Biden is a hero. He saved democracy in 2020. We need him to do it again in 2024. But of course, this time he means by stepping aside. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi, another close Biden ally, raised doubts of her own today, suggesting Biden needs to reach a decision once he's done with the NATO summit this week.
As long as the president has it's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
Well, Jackson, Biden continues to insist he's not going anywhere. So what could actually change his thinking at this point?
Probably two things, quiet pressure and polls. And let's start with the polls. They are increasingly dire. Several surveys out just this week show Donald Trump is now leading in every one of the key swing states that Biden would need to win to keep the White House, and leading by a wide margin, we should add. And then there's the pressure. There is a sense that the president will dig in if the public calls to step aside grow too loud. But quiet urging behind the scenes may be more effective. For now, Biden is pressing ahead. He's holding a major press conference tomorrow, and we've learned that he'll be giving another primetime interview Monday night, presumably to talk more about his future. Carolyn?
All right, thanks for this, Jackson. Parts of British Columbia, Manitoba, and nearly all of Alberta and Saskatchewan are under heat warnings again today, while eastern Canada is being hit by heavy rain from what's left of Hurricane Beryl. The rainfall caused localized flooding in Toronto, leading to a treacherous commute. There is now concern the remnants of Beryl could cause widespread flooding across southern Ontario and Quebec, as well as parts of the Maritimes. For more on what people living in those regions can expect, let's bring in meteorologist Ross Hull. Ross.
Hi, Carolyn. Well, as the remnants of Beryl moved into Canada, the storm lost many of its tropical characteristics. No longer a hurricane or tropical storm, but it has delivered heavy amounts of rain, in some cases half a month's worth of rain, or even more than that, in just a matter of hours. So the storm has taken a track along the jet stream through Ontario, Quebec. It will move into the Maritimes by Thursday. And as it's done so, it's delivered some heavy downpours, torrential rains, has already caused some localized flooding. In some cases, 50 to 100 millimeters of rain have fallen. Also, the potential for some tornadoes today around the Niagara area, and there have been tornadoes in New York State due to the remnants of the storm. So a lot going on, but we're keeping an eye on is still that potential for some heavy bands of rain tonight into Thursday. So that's why there are rainfall warnings that stretch across Ontario through to southwestern Quebec into the Maritimes. Many of these areas will have the potential total amounts of rain possible to 50 to 80 millimeters, locally even 100 millimeters. And in an urban area, that can certainly cause flooding. Let me show you these remnants. They start to ease in terms of the rainfall for southern Ontario by Thursday morning. Still some bands of heavier rain around Montreal. And then into the Maritimes, parts of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, even Prince Edward Island could get into some heavy rain through the day on Thursday. All areas, thankfully, will start to dry out by Friday. Carolyn?
Global News meteorologist Ross Hull, thank you. An evacuation order has been issued for a northern Alberta community threatened by wildfire. Officials from Red River Cree Nation are ordering residents to vacate the community of Garden River, about 8 hours north of Edmonton. A wildfire is threatening access to the area along Highway 58, and there is concern people could become trapped. The order affects about 700 people. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he's not backing down on plans to sell ready-to-drink cocktails at convenience and grocery stores in the province. The issue is a sticking point in an ongoing strike by liquor store workers. Their union says it could erode the market share of the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, or LCBO, and potentially lead to store closures and layoffs. Ford, meanwhile, says it's about offering people more choice and more convenience.
Thousands of businesses are preparing for this exciting milestone. They've ordered fridges, dedicated shelf space, or started to hire and train new staff. I'm not going to let those folks down. We're going to make sure we get this done.
The province is offering LCBO workers a 7% wage increase over the next 3 years. More than 9,000 people walked off the job last Friday. We are learning more tonight about a landmark First Nations child welfare settlement. A closed-door session was held this week at the Assembly of First Nations annual meeting. National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Neepanak reportedly revealed the settlement from the feds is worth nearly $48 billion over 10 years. That's more than double what Ottawa originally promised for long-term reforms to the child welfare system.
It is a fair offer that will benefit the generations for our children. I believe it will. I think it's a fair offer. And let's never lose sight of what this is all about. It's about our children, about our future.
Chiefs from across the country are expected to discuss the offer before voting on it at a special assembly this fall. The other part of the settlement, $23 billion to compensate 300,000 people harmed by the welfare system, was approved last year. Woodhouse-Nepenak says that money should start rolling out later this year. In Montreal, one of the first pro-Palestinian university encampments to go up in Canada is being dismantled. The protest began in late April, lasting 74 days. But today, the university hired a private security firm to clear it out. Mike Armstrong reports on why the decision was made now.
Protesters filmed and shared on social media their early morning eviction. They say they were tipped off Tuesday night and expected something to happen. It did.
Around 4:15-ish, riot cops started mobilizing. The arrest buses started pulling up, probably in the realm of upwards of 100.
Basically, at first light, security guards moved in and started the teardown. For the most part, protesters left peacefully, setting up instead in the street, watching as the encampment was dismantled.
My stuff is still in there, yes. I don't know what's going to happen to it. I would really like my stuff back.
This is not how I wanted it to end. I think McGill could have ended it a long time ago if they had, committed to divesting.
Now, the university says it hired a company recently to investigate what's been going on at the encampment. Its findings, McGill says, led to today's actions. In a statement, the university's president says it found most of the protesters were activists from external groups. There were significant health and safety risks, including rats and 2 drug overdoses, and that the camp was a magnet for violence and intimidation. Quote, the risks emanating from the camp have been escalating steadily and dangerously.
They've been using this magnet for violence or epicenter for anti-Semitism, and, quite frankly, it's not true.
Now, over the last 10.5 weeks, there has been vandalism on campus and confrontations with police. Last month, the group briefly occupied McGill's administration building. Quebec's premier had a short but not subtle reaction to the camp being torn down. Finally, he said, finally. There have been several pro-Palestinian encampments at Quebec universities and one in a public square. As of Wednesday evening, they have all now been dismantled. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
At the University of Ottawa, it was the demonstrators who decided to end their protest this week. Organizers issued a statement saying students elected to vacate the encampment because of an impasse in negotiations. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators were calling on the university to divest from companies with ties to Israel. Well, to the war in Gaza now, where the Israeli military has ordered the evacuation of Gaza City. All Palestinians are being told to pack up and head south. The order suggests Israel is going ahead with a new offensive across the north and central parts of Gaza. Already, there was heavy shelling overnight. Israel says it's searching for Hamas fighters who are regrouping in Gaza and will suspend some inspections to allow people to reach humanitarian zones. Police in the UK call it a horrific incident. Coming up, the deadly attack against the family of a BBC commentator. An overnight manhunt in the UK has ended with the arrest of a 26-year-old man. The former soldier allegedly killed 3 women with a crossbow. The triple murder has the country's new Home Secretary reviewing the accessibility of the weapon, and a small town northwest of London is reeling. Crystal Gomansing brings us details about the victims and what's being revealed about the suspect.
Kyle Clifford, a former British soldier and private security guard, was found hiding in a cemetery almost 24 hours into a manhunt.
Our overarching objective today is to protect public safety and to locate Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the murder of the 3 women.
The women died as a result of their injuries after being attacked in a home northwest of London. The BBC revealed they were racing commentator John Hunt's wife, Carol, and daughters Hannah and Louise. A small memorial began to form Wednesday. One person wrote on a card, "I wish none of this was real. I wish I could hug all of you."
This is not something that happens in Bushy. We've can't remember a murder in our rather quiet neck of the woods.
The new Home Secretary has called what's happened here appalling. 3 women having lost their lives, but also the type of weapon police believe was used, a crossbow. The Home Secretary is looking to see if more regulations could maybe be useful. crossbow restrictions are in place, but only for those under 18. A parliamentary petition gathered more than 42,000 signatures, but in 2021, the government said it was not considering further legislation. The parish priest for St. James Bushy was at the scene providing support to community members, including the police.
I'm human like anyone else. Just because I'm a priest I've not been imbued with magic powers. Perhaps the blessing I have is I can try and understand a broader perspective on what's going on. But I find it just as shocking. Just as shocking.
Police say the suspect knew the victims and described the attack as targeted. Clifford was taken to hospital after being arrested. Crystal Gamansing, Global News, London.
An extended stay on the International Space Station ahead when the Starliner crew says they could be headed home. Well, check out this scene at Vancouver International Airport. Video posted to social media shows dozens of live eels sliding on the tarmac. YVR says ground handlers were unloading an airplane on Sunday when a special delivery opened up. Airport officials say the eels were collected and repackaged safely. The trial for actor Alec Baldwin got underway in New Mexico today.
Mr. Baldwin, are you feeling confident today?
Baldwin is charged with involuntary manslaughter in the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins. She died in 2021 when the gun Baldwin was holding went off on the set of the movie Rust. The prosecution alleges the actor declined safety checks on the day of the shooting. Baldwin says he is not guilty. If convicted, he could face up to 18 months in prison. The film's armorer is currently in jail for her role in Hutchins' death. Well, for many, a delayed flight means unwanted expenses or a ruined vacation. But for a pair of veteran NASA astronauts, it meant a few extra weeks in space. And no one seems worried about it. As Nathaniel Dove explains, their return could still be weeks away.
Procedures for hatch opening.
Boeing's Starliner has been stuck in space for weeks, and it will remain there even longer.
Human spaceflight is not easy in any regime. And there have been multiple issues with every spacecraft that's ever been designed, and that's the nature of what we do.
Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams' return to Earth has been delayed before, and Boeing and NASA still did not say exactly when they could come back. But they gave a window, late July, ranging to the start of August.
And liftoff.
They need to clear a docking port for an incoming SpaceX Dragon.
I feel confident that if we had to, if there was a problem with the International Space Station, we can get in our spacecraft and we can undock, talk to our team, and figure out the best way to come home.
NASA at first said Starliner could only stay up for 45 days, and Wednesday was the 35th. They say they're waiting for testing done on Earth. Some thrusters malfunctioned and helium leaked. A space veteran, though, is also unfazed.
The crew's not in any danger. Their vehicle is checking out pretty close to perfect health. Got a few things, but all spaceships do. And they'll come home whenever it makes sense.
Colonel Chris Hadfield says their return depends on navigation and timing. A planetary scientist says, in the grand scheme, the delay is a small issue.
The future plans are sort of to build this lunar gateway around the moon to sort of replicate what the ISS is doing. So we're really setting up for the future and hopefully going beyond just the orbit of the Earth.
It is, after all, a test flight designed to find the faults, part of having a second craft to take humanity into orbit and beyond. Nathaniel Dove, Global News, Toronto.
Celebrating defeat. Next, why Canada's loss in the Copa America semifinals may actually be a win for the future of men's soccer. Well, it wasn't the outcome Canadian soccer fans were hoping for, though it was the one most expected. Canada lost to Argentina 2-0 in the Copa America last night. And while the team will still play in the third-place match on Saturday, it's the newfound optimism for Team Canada that's already a win. Mackenzie Gray reports.
It's history in the making. Can't wait for this, man.
It started as classic Canadian optimism.
You know what? I love Messi. We love Messi. We love him.
And kindness for an all-time great.
Messi's Messi, right? And
one pass of the game, one shot of the game, you change the game single-handedly, right?
And that's exactly what happened. Leo Messi driving a dagger into Canada's chances to make it to a Copa America final, putting Argentina up 2-0, where the game would finish.
We let Messi get on the ball a little bit too much, and obviously, when Lionel Messi's on the ball, he punishes you.
Canada hung in with the reigning world champs, defending very well and creating numerous chances, but unable to finish any of them, a recurring theme for the Canadian team that's only scored 2 goals in 5 matches. Canada's manager believes they will come soon.
We've had a wonderful 5 weeks together, 6 weeks together, and it's gone way better than any of us could have scripted. So there's still a lot of work to do.
And that work continues Saturday. Canada in the 3rd place game, and things don't get any easier, facing Uruguay or Colombia, 2 other South American titans.
You need to just refocus, reshift. We have a huge game coming up, and we're going to go for the win. We want to end this tournament on a positive note.
Regardless of the next result, this run from the men's team likely to inspire a new crop of Canadians to pick up their own country's jersey.
It gives me great pleasure to see that we're actually starting to talk about the Canadian team rather than talking about another team because of what your heritage was.
The team is now packing up and heading to Charlotte, North Carolina for that 3rd place game, but many of the players will dream of coming back here in a Canada shirt, Carolyn, with the World Cup final being held here in 2026.
Mackenzie Gray in East Rutherford, New Jersey, thank you. And that is Global National for this Wednesday night. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. Tonight's Your Canada is a rainbow over Hemford, Nova Scotia. We love seeing your Canada. Please keep emailing your photos to viewers at globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow night. Have a great night.